See it.
This one, Sing
Yeah,
Sing,
yeah.
not the other one that you
No,
did
no.
last time.
Well, it's worth seeing. Janice Ian, it's on Amazon. And if you remember Janice Ian from your youth, she was the 16-year-old prodigy who did Society's Child and um, another
I don't
hit.
remember her at all.
Oh,
So,
you heard the music, you'd remember it ring in your ears.
okay.
You're muted, Linda. You're muted. You're muted, Linda. Ah,
Now I'm back.
yeah.
I
Okay.
was saying I, of course, know Janice Ian, but I didn't know about the film, so I'll have to catch up on that one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a remarkably intimate biopic and documentary, and it's better than most documentaries about musicians. I saw it at the Palm Springs Film Festival along with a documentary on Diane Warren, who's this fabulous, terrific songwriter for Hollywood and the movies and has written so many songs and scores. But at the end of the day, it was just, oh, she's a busy commercial woman and quite bright, but you don't really know what makes her tick.
Right.
And in the Janis Ian film, you really felt like you went on her journey with her. So good films can do that. And Jeffrey, how are you?
I'm good, Jim. Everything's good. I'm really curious to hear why you chose this particular film tonight. I mean, I enjoyed it, um, but I'm just wondering where you're going to take the
Okay. I don't
discussion.
know where I'm going to take it either. Let me say hello to Jane and we'll get into that. Jane Jelenko, great to have you with us. Jane's been an occasional visitor, but always a movie fan.
Yep, big movie fan. Hi, looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should get started, all uh, seven of us. And well, Don doesn't have, Don Levy has taken over the post chores today. And, I just watched this afternoon with Janice, my wife, and she said, well, there's not much to talk about. And I said, but no, there really is. And I guess that's what Jeff is curious about too. This is a remarkably unstructured film, yet it's not loose and scattered. There are a lot of players and a lot of people. You don't, at the end of it, I don't get all their names. Blaze is the heavyset guy. There's Divine I, and Divine G, and Mike, and Brent, who's the coach. That's about it. But each person, excuse the pun, has a role to play in the movie, and it goes along at its own pace. Initially, Divine I is skeptical and wounded and enclosed, and he's won over, but not in any one scene. It's a slow progress. And you get to know the process. For those of you who've ever taken any acting classes, the improvisational exercises they do are warm-ups to get people out of wherever they were and into their imagination so they can move their bodies differently and sound differently and feel differently and also be more vulnerable to each other. And that's really what the film is about. Uh, about 85% of the people you see were actually incarcerated criminals, right? The two leads, I and G, are pro actors. Brent is a pro actor. Maybe the black lady who ran the Clemency Commission is an actor. Everybody else is an ex-con.
I read somewhere that the one not not the lead, the I guess what was
It's
his
the
name?
I. It's Divine I.
Yeah, Divine
He
I
played
that
he played
he
himself.
He's
yeah, that he was playing himself, that he really did have this
oh, he was okay. I
theater
got that wrong.
background, but he was playing himself.
Yeah, I was misinformed about that. And Steve uh, Zimmerman is with us through his picture of his alter ego. Hello, Steve. And so that's one thing about it. There's a certain truthfulness when non-actors reveal themselves because they don't know how to be phony as well. you know. Although there's a funny moment in the clemency hearing when the uh, the woman says, "So are you acting now?" And
Right.
it really sets him back, because he's been talking about what acting does for people, and he says, "No, no, no. The purpose is not to hide, but to reveal yourself." And of course, we don't know the
Can I just
result of it.
interrupt? Because it's interesting. I thought that you thought that was funny. To me, I thought that was one of the really sad moments in the movie, because here he had, he was such a good guy,
Mhm.
and she thought it was all, a facade, and
Well, consider her role. What do clemency officers or parole officers do? Their chief trait is skepticism. It's like they have to beware because criminals do lie a lot and they do deceive, and some are better than others. So they don't want to be taken advantage of because they're society's watchdog. Do we let this person out? Do we shorten their sentence? What do we do with them? So it's a big responsibility, and they don't go on their gut feelings all the time, or even mostly. Rarely they do. Um, I thought it was funny because he like got caught, and this is the great thing about Coleman Domingo as an actor. You saw he pauses after he doesn't know how to answer. And of course, Coleman Domingo would know how to answer, but would that character know how to answer? And the answer is no, because he's been trying to be as sincere as he can be. Remember, he's falsely incarcerated and he's been in jail for many years. And for him, this acting is his only chance to be really who he is, because he's not a criminal, despite the surroundings, the reality around him. So, in a way, it's an insult because he's saying, "What? Can't you believe I'm sincere? I'm feeling it from the inside." So it was an interesting, it's a study in perception and who believes whom, and our facades and our guises. And if anything, the film is all about reaching people where they hurt most, not who they really are, but I mean, yes, who they really are, but the way in is not through is through their pain. There's a moment early in the film where after one of the Hamlet the I does his first Hamlet soliloquy, and it's like, um, you've shown us your anger, but you haven't shown the hurt, right? And if you think about what anger is, it's because you've been injured and you're angry about it because you feel you shouldn't have been injured, didn't deserve it. The other people don't understand you. And that was a breakthrough, because that's what actors do. They slice the onion of emotions very thin.
They weren't actors, most of them, right? Couple of
Excuse me, Peg? Did you want to say something, Peg?
No,
Oh, okay. Well,
my friend is sitting here and was saying that some of them weren't actors, right?
oh, most of them were not.
Yeah.
Most of them were not actors. So that's what's remarkable. And the heavyset guy Blaze and the guy Charlie, who comes back at the end, they gave wonderful statements of what it was like to be there. Linda?
Yeah, I think, also Coleman Domingo is a very talented actor. I have seen him in many films. I mean, he was in this Four Seasons where he played, it was almost a comedy, it was just part of a gay couple. And then he played in Rust. And then he also was in a Netflix movie called Madness, where he was an author who was being falsely accused of a crime, and he is very engaging. And I think that the camera and the way the film worked very well was because of him. I think he really brought a lot of emotion, as well as it. I had the feel of it like a documentary. It was like a
Very
doc.
much so. Yeah, there was a lot of handheld and a lot of tight close-ups really in their face, so they could be in your face. And a lot of low angle shots like Steve Zimmerman is, because the camera's looking up at him and makes him look more intense and heroic.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
an
you,
old,
Jim.
yeah. That's an old
Almost
trick
mythological, I think.
in the early days of Russian cinema. Eisenstein and others used the low angle camera to make heroic the icons of Russian history as they tried to lionize them. It's like standing up against the elements or against the clouds, the sky. It makes them into a statue or a monument, and it can be very powerful. Steve doesn't like it, but so it's not just the closeness, but it was very close. I don't know. I didn't research the director, but it's one of those films that it sort of earns its keep along the way. It's not, the usual film that we see has causation. One scene causes the next. Your understanding makes you interpret something a certain way, and they're connected. This was kind of loosely structured, uh, and it's kind of like a spiral as they go through their exercises. One guy divulges a little more than the other, and then between the exercises and the preparation, there's other stuff going on, and who they are is carried on in the perform in the as an actor in the group. And the very when Divine Eye is revealed, he's shaking down some white prisoner for money. He says, "Oh, this isn't what I gave you. This is just aspirin." And he's probably just deceiving the guy with a great performance to shake $500 out of him because he's a white guy in a black jail. He's going to get killed if he doesn't behave. And he's called over to talk to Coleman Domingo and Mike, I think. And they say, that's quite a performance you gave down there, shaking that guy down. And he says, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. We do that all the time. At the same time, being able to do that all the time is a measure of the facade that one puts on in jail to survive, to assert dominance. And so there's a certain amount of, he has to undo his imprisoned learning, and that's the big transformation he goes through. And once he breaks through, then he learns about the difference between anger and hurt. And then he eventually shows it. And that's what sort of pulls the whole company together. And so when he has that breakthrough scene and they all gather around him and high five him because he gave such a great soliloquy. And he does. And by counterpoint, let's talk about Coleman Domingo, Divine G. He's got the weight of the whole prison on his shoulders because the few people that are in the group really rely on him as a source of truthfulness and sincerity and intimacy and trust. They trust him. So what happens when he doesn't get clemency? G gets a thin packet. He knows he says, you got out, didn't you? And then he takes it really hard. And eventually in the dress rehearsal, he blows up at the whole cast. And he says, what's the point? We're still in a jail. We can pretend to be somebody else. Big deal. This is our reality. And of course, that's what the mindset he's been working against with all the other characters. Is to say this will set you free from your reality, and it will give you some control over your emotions and your feelings and your life. It will restore you to yourself by acting to be someone else because you get out of the part of yourself that is imprisoned. So you see, there's a freedom to pretending to be somebody else. And that's why you've heard RTA mentioned twice at the beginning and the end. This is a rehabilitation through the arts. It's a real organization that works in prisons to bring artful expression to them, whether it's painting or music or performance. And they're mostly active on the East Coast. And they're a real, they get their names in the credits, and they're a real organization because they're not the only ones who found this out. It's not just the filmmaker or we are such smart people. This is encounter therapy. And we all seen convicts sitting around or alcoholics sitting around in a circle and saying, hi, I'm an alcoholic and I beat my wife. I don't mean to make fun of them, but we've seen that. And this is a kind of forced intimacy when you're in a group where, come on, I gave up on myself. You've got to show us something real too. You can't be in the group without participating. And most of the guys in the group showed they're really into it. They live for these moments. And look, they're not in the yard with other hoodlums. They're in this empty, recreational space with empty chairs all around. And within that space, they're free. And this guy, Brent, who comes to visit them as a coach, as a director, he's honest with them too. He knows what they're going through when they're faking, and he knows when they're telling the truth and really committing to something real. So it's like the plot knocks around. It's all about this performance they're going to give, the new play that Brent winds up writing. And Coleman Domingo says, well, I don't have anything that's ready yet. And obviously they've done other things that he's done because they rely on him as the supreme actor and playwright. And they all have a bunch of ideas, and Brent says, well, let's combine all your ideas into one play. It's a mishmash. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And when you see how the different roles, you see them singularly, but not as a whole piece, they're humorous. The science fiction characters and the Egyptian and others. So he has to bring this together into kind of a piece of performance theater, absurdist theater. It's absurd because it's not real and it's also not linear. It's uh, I guess you could say it's experimental theater because nothing has to make sense, you know. But we know the movie makes sense to us because we see the progress of each of the characters. So even there's not one causation between one scene and the next. People do change from scene to scene as the film goes on, and they change as a group, and within the group they react. So it's kind of like they all take turns showing off how they're becoming more of themselves. And I wish I had the script because I could follow the transitions that each character makes. Ordinarily, I'd say, oh, here's the moment where they understand this about themselves or they understand this about the plot. And it's very hard to do that in this because there's so many mini revelations about that as they work on their exercises and then the scenes together. Um, it's really unique that the director writer could pull it all together like that. And I didn't realize how clever he was until I saw it this second time this afternoon. So, and he had the wisdom to shoot it like a documentary because the more real the guys came off, the better for the film. They didn't have the budget to, make it glitzy or have expensive scenes. And it's like one of those things that, my God, I don't believe he did that, but he did it, as a director, is pulling together. Look, at the end, you understood the whole piece, right? Right? One guy gets freed, the other doesn't. Eventually, the other guy gets freed, and they both say, wow, we did it. We're out here now. But they got there, they also rehearsed on the clemency hearing for the first guy, for and even Coleman Domingo says, come on, I'll work with you on it. And I is skeptical and says, nah, that's never, I'm trapped here forever. And then there's this great line or set of lines where Domingo says, yeah, that's what they want you to think, that you belong here and that you are a criminal. And that's all you are, and you can't get out of here until you get out of that feeling. So I'm going to help you plead your own case at your clemency hearing. And he hands him a sheath of papers to study. So it does, it's not like it figures in much later, but you don't have to see him studying. You don't have to see his clemency hearing. You don't, it skips over a lot, but it's not fractured because you understand what you missed and you don't miss it because it takes that character to another level. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, it's like I'm just restating the obvious, it's very hard without citing the specifics. I guess I could refer to my notes. Oh, then there's the apology scene before that. Coleman Domingo basically quits during dress rehearsal. So what does that mean to the other guys in the cast? Anybody? He's letting them down. He's like dropping, he's betraying the trust they had in him. And this is very disheartening to everybody. And there's yeah, Linda?
Yeah, but there was a discussion about breaking points, I think, at that. And I think, to me, it seemed they were very compassionate,
Yes.
Everybody has a breaking point. So to a degree, they were disappointed and they resented it. But then there's also another side of it where they seem to kind of understand why he did that.
I think it was Blaze. He said, we all have our breaking points. We've been there. Yet we come back here, to the rehearsal room. And I don't know if he said that directly or if he said it to the other group members. But yeah, that's very much in play. And I comes up to him leaning against the wall there, and he says, God, you really, he makes Domingo feel guilty. He says, I really fucked up, didn't I? And he said, yes, you sure did, you know, but we took a vote. You don't see it happen, but you hear of it. So it's not verbal connection. I mean, it is a verbal, it's advancing the story by words, not by scene, by action, by showing. But it plays because we don't need to see the vote. We need to see the that the vote gives him confidence, that they want, they'll let you back, but here's what you have to do. You have to write an apology, and then there's a joke, something else you have to do. I forget what the joke was. And it ends in laughter.
Oh, yeah, you have to say that I did a really good job in the play.
Oh, right. EYE did a good job. And they cheer a laugh. And that kind of brings them back to the connections that the two of them have. And then, of course, to the rest of the group. So he can appear before all of them and be a team player again. Jeffrey?
Yeah, I think a really important part of this was the Hamlet, the the soliloquy of to be or not to be.
Yeah.
Because in a way, that's the issue that all of them are really faced with in prison. I think is whether to go on or to give up.
Right. Right. He says, and by facing our troubles, diminish them or something at the end of the speech. Whether it is nobler in the mind to ignore the slings and arrows or acknowledge the slings. Yeah, it's like, and that speech resonates with that because it's about, they want you to think you're a criminal and a victim, and that's all you'll ever be. And you have to face that and prove that it's not right if you want to stay sane when you're in jail. And one way you do it is by play acting. It's kind of like, doesn't quite compute, but the process of acting is a process of revelation. Like Domingo says to the woman who leads the clemency conference, no, the purpose of acting isn't to cheat and to lie. It's to reveal. And, that's sort of enough. And, then she levels the bombshell that the person, the witness is dead. They can't verify his tape. Yeah, Jeffrey.
Yeah, this is kind of my last comment, and it's probably not relevant to a lot of the people here who are not teachers. But I've had theater companies come in and work with my students, and I often wonder why we don't use some of these techniques in a classroom to bring together students as a community.
Can you name a technique that you thought would be very useful for students?
All of them, like just getting up and walking and expressing a certain emotion or thinking about a place or whatever. It's a dream, and then revealing what that is. Any of those in order to basically get students to open up.
Yeah. Well, I think some teachers do. Good teachers do, and but yeah, if they've not been shown to do it and how it's effective, they don't. I mean, I can't defend teachers of any kind. I know I had good teachers, but very few did that. I had a foreign language teacher who actually developed a technique for learning languages for the Peace Corps in the 60s. And it was called immersion, where nobody spoke their native tongue. You only spoke the language in your class. And it was all done by acting out scenes with emotions, with sounds, or with the say, Spanish words you knew. And so you dramatize the meaning with things other than speech. I want to ask Betty a question, because Betty, you were a social worker for years?
I still work. Yeah, social work. I do counseling.
So do you think this would be a good technique for getting people out of themselves as a way of reaching themselves?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that anyway. I think a lot of people use all of the arts, I think, to you know, and one of the things with the acting, they ask which role would you like to play, so that they could really express themselves. You know, if there was a role that they identified with,
Yeah.
they could express themselves through
Mhm.
that role.
And was that part of your training as a social worker, how to connect with your caseload?
Using drama,
Yeah.
psychodrama. I remember doing that you could play act with either as a group or one-on-one. You know, it's, you know, there's so many things, but that certainly was one of many.
Okay. Let me review some moments. It's interesting. They established the prison just through shots here, shots there. You see him typing in his cell, feeding the geese. Then there's the alarm, and they have to lay flat. This expository material is like revealing prison life. It doesn't have any immediate connection one shot to another. Um, and the first hint we get of uh, Divine G's stature is that he was in Rikers Island and somebody knew him from Rikers and says, sign this thing that you wrote. I don't know what it was, but you're important. You were really, I looked up to you there. And he's modest, of course. And then they have a meeting of five of them. They're debating who should we ask to join? And that takes them to witnessing Divine Eye shake down the white guy. And it turns out that he knows Shakespeare because he quotes in that meeting on the overlooking the yard a line from Shakespeare.
Speaking
And
of that, I just one thing about Divine Eye, he had said, and I don't remember what the reason was that he left, but whether it was money or something else, but he had been in a school for performing arts before, and then he got into crime. So, you know, he really had, and I thought he was very talented in the role.
Yeah.
I thought he did a good job of acting. And so he might have had a lot of opportunity if he'd stayed with that.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, there's a lot of regret in all of this. Oh, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids, or I wish I weren't in jail because I could watch them grow up. And, there's a lot of regret that is driving their victimhood, their sense of personal victimhood. Um, the auditions were kind of funny. You saw a couple, jump cuts like in Chorus Line where they go from one dancer to another dancer. It's a technique that's used in many films. So it was cute here. And and then they had their first rehearsal, had a very rough ending. I think G walks out, I walks out. He resents it. Um, and then there's a confrontation. Again, this is kind of understated. G confronts say, I know you got a knife in your belt, and that doesn't cut it here. Excuse the pun. Um, you know, and he says, we don't use the word niggers here. We use the word beloved. And you hear that a couple of times later, and it's a nice touch. But again, that's Divine G apart from Divine I, because they when they need to refer to the other person, they have different terms for it. Each carrying its own meaning. But after that, we begin to see that G is like the den mother. He carries the weight of all the acting troupe on his shoulders. And that sustains him. He likes being that kind of figurehead. He even interrupts one of Brent's rehearsals and said, could I chime in and talk him through this? And Brent says, of course, because that kind of productive self-assertion is one thing this is meant to produce. And he also says, you guys are, maybe it's Brent who says this, you guys are getting real with each other. That's something men don't do very often. And it's true. What?
Oh, I was just saying that struck me also. Paul and I are talking. I should put my camera on, I suppose. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
the fact that they had this community of men, tough men,
Mhm.
who formed a real community. Even an alum who comes back into the group to visit, who was out, but he
Yeah.
comes back and visits. It's like they really form a community of people who are comfortable revealing themselves, which, as you say, in normal circumstances, not prevalent in our society. So yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, when people like students in high school get a real dose of what being part of a theatrical company is, and they do their show for the whole school and parents, a lot of them get hooked on acting because it is a community you create, and there's a trust you have and an understanding um, that you share with just that group of people. I know in finishing a film, after many months of work, you feel like, oh, they know all the travails we've been through, ups and downs, and the hard work, and it's finally done. And we had an experience together, and nobody understands the making of that film, uh, like we do together, or attorney and client. Well, we won that case, and nobody understands what we went through other than our side. Um, it's called work interaction. You know people through their actions and experiencing them firsthand. Um, and apart from that, you're getting real with each other. The comment follows, we're here to begin to be humans again. You see, so exposing your vulnerability, which tough guys don't do, is really what they yearn for the most, because they get a different kind of community out of it that's not destructive. Um, okay, let me go on, since you people are so filled with comments. I mean, it is a hard film to talk about because it just happens in front of us, and there's no plot. It's plot, fizz, as they say. Uh,
Why did they use the names divine? Do you think
Yeah.
that intentionally was
Yeah.
done by the playwright? I mean, the person who directed it or
Yeah,
wrote
but I think it's indicative of prison life, and it bestows a certain honor. In some places it can be sarcastic. Like when I was in high school for a brief year, they called me Diamond Jim, and that was not meant to be a compliment.
it?
It was sarcastic. Um, Needless to say, I'm not close to those people anymore.
Jim, do you know, I gather that Sing Sing is got some is well known for this or
Yeah,
RTA.
RTA, that
Yeah.
group they work there and in other prisons. And at the end, there's this montage of curtain calls, various people bowing. That's the various plays that have been put on. Maybe not at Sing Sing, but elsewhere. They're probably all RTA productions.
Yeah, it seemed like a montage of
Yeah, it's tolerable. I mean, it takes a while, a brief while, but it's sort of like a parenthetical insertion that says, "You see, this works all over." It's not a documentary, so they didn't follow 3 shows at 3 different prisons and compare and contrast. It's all in one, and I think that was the right choice. Um, and this notion of time travel that the play is built on, it was the only way to make it make sense. And if you think about it, the prisoners are asked to time travel back into their own pasts and confront their different personas. And to them, it all makes sense, even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else. They learn how it makes sense, or they learn to accept the chaos that is their own personal story, um, because all the different conflicts and the different parts of the chaotic upbringing become one story, even if they're not connected. And then Mike has this explanation. Mike has the cell next to Divine G, and he's the bald guy. And I don't know if you got this, but he dies of an aneurysm, aortic aneurysm, and he's no longer seen. And they all kind of go into shock. But he talks about how he got there. Now, his grandmother was the most important person in his life, but he got into drugs and it broke her heart. And it was the only person he ever loved. and he regrets it to this day. And shortly after that, we learn that he's had an aneurysm, internalizing all that stress. And yeah, G says he gave up dance because it was G who says he had to give up dance in his arts high school because he had to fight for it. All the other students would call him a faggot, but he loved dancing because it freed him, and he had to pay for it. So he left the world of dance because he didn't want to defend it all the time. And then Mike dies, and everybody's sad. And G takes his death pretty heavily because he's moping around. He can't laugh when the other guys are laughing at some scene. It's just a dolly shot that moves into G, and his face is, consumed with another emotion. Because he lost a friend. The other people were fond of him and liked him in the group, but they divulged, they were like soulmates or cellmates almost. And that's when change begins to happen. And Charlie comes back. Charlie was a released prisoner. He's got glasses, he wears a blue shirt, and he hugs everybody. And it's like proving that, you've been through something with an acting troupe and you never forget it. And he says, yeah, it's great to be out there. The air is different, blah, blah, blah. But it's not really that different. And I had this dog and I lost him. And that really broke my heart. But I'm here because I need to be reinvigorated. Can we do an exercise together? So it's almost like an act of mourning or a release from mourning of his dog to get together with these guys again. It's like a fraternity reunion, but, without the alcohol and with some real feeling between them. That was a very touching scene. I'm coming to the end of my notes, so if you have anything to say, it's time to say it.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie. I love Coleman Domingo. I mean,
Yeah, he's just great.
he's
Yeah.
just so good. Some of the transitions, I know it's an hour and a half movie, some of it's a little unrealistic, but you accept that what they're doing. Some of the transformations and temperament of some of the people,
Uh-huh.
but
Well,
you get the
did they not
point.
seem true to you? They seem sudden, but did
Yeah,
they?
in some of the cases, it seemed very sudden to me, like the
Uh-huh.
hard-boiled egg, Divine Eye. He became a kind of touchy-feely relatively quickly. Hey, it's a great program. I guess it really worked.
Yeah, but he received, I don't remember when that happened, but he did receive, after his successful soliloquy, he gets all this affirmation from the group. They flock to him because they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
really moved by something he did.
yeah, I know.
That's causation.
Yeah, but he gets over his paranoia. I mean, someone walks behind him, and it's like
Oh, right. Yeah, but that was
he
before,
couldn't
right?
handle that, but he got past it pretty quick.
Yeah.
But still,
That's the thuggery, I was looking behind your back to see if somebody's out to off you, and or take over your role in the mob. Yeah, I get it. There's an interesting shot as Domingo is leaving. He looks through a jail door and he sees a young man. Right? Remember that shot? And Divine Eye says, "My son's in the same jail."
Hmm.
I think that was meant to be the son.
Ah,
Oh.
And he's sad when he sees it because he knows that's the son. You just read Domingo's face and it tells you a lot. So again, it's that doesn't make for a whole movie.
yeah, I remember that. I didn't know if it was necessarily Divine Eye's son, but it's just another young man falling into the same predicament in the
Yeah.
same cell.
Okay.
It's like the cycle going.
Yeah, perpetuate. It's like
Yeah.
just because these guys made it doesn't mean the others will. And then that reunion. There's a wonderful performance as Domingo is leaving the gates of the jail for the first time. You watch his face, if you see it again, there's this trepidation, this worry, this fear that gradually gives way to tentative joy. and it's a great, great moment of silent acting where he conveys everything with just his face. Remember we saw uh the Japanese movie uh Something Days about the guy who cleans toilets in Tokyo.
Hmm.
And the last scene is him in the car driving away, and he goes through a million different reiterations of joy, happiness, fear, sadness, and finally affirmation. It's like wonderful actors can do this, and to great effect. Um, and then the reunion is great. I kind of question why that scene was shot from afar. The camera's inside the cab of the car, and they're outside in front of the hood, and it's it's a two shot. They embrace, they laugh, they cry, they embrace again, and then they say, "Let's go." Am I criticizing it? By that time, you accept it, but you kind of want to be there with the embrace a little closer. Linda?
Yeah, it was also to me very sad because there was no one from his family there. He does mention he had a son and two daughters, and he said, well, their daughters are on his loan. And, the fact that he gets out and it's so empty. I mean, that's what struck me,
It's
that
heartbreaking, yeah.
that emptiness, that he survived, but to what? When he comes out, what's going to happen to him?
Yeah.
And the lack of any connection. And I gather they didn't visit him because there was just nobody there when he got out, except for
The
the
guy,
divine
yeah.
eye. I mean, his friend from the
Yeah.
inside.
I mean, he never claimed he had a grandmother who was the only person he ever loved or was close to. It's like he just said, I've got two daughters who are grown and a young son who was born after I came here.
Mm.
So he doesn't even know the son.
Right.
So you just assume the daughters are estranged. The wife is estranged. The son never knew him. So it's
How
sad. I
long
mean,
was he, how long was he in? Do you
I don't
remember?
know. I don't know. It was a long time.
Yeah.
So again, you can't ask too much. It's like, remember I used to say, to never let the facts ruin a good movie. It's like you got to go with what's there and
What
accept
was
it.
interesting too, they asked, I don't remember what the exact question was, but something to the effect of, what do you think about when you want to, what's your safe place?
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah,
do you go? And they all listed such simple things, I remember
yeah.
a woman I love, my children. I like looking at the ocean, it was just yeah.
But then who has a problem with that assignment? Is it uh, divine I? Is I can't do it. I'm too stuck here. Somebody says that.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a contrasting point of view there. That, but again, that's another theme that you have to get outside the reality because the reality condemns you to be a victim and a prisoner and guilty, as though there's no other role for you. Your life is over, basically. And if you want to survive prison, you have to realize it's not over. And here's how you survive is by getting back to who you really are, despite your flaws and your errors. So, the movie doesn't say that directly, but I think it's there. And certainly in Coleman Domingo it is. And in G. Um, and then after they drive away and Domingo rolls down the window, and he's just enjoying the air. But again, like at the gate of the jail, there's the pain of the beauty of freedom, that he was deprived it, that he's still with it, he'll carry it with him all the time, and yet he's going to learn to enjoy this freedom. And so it's bittersweet, but it's still sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the ending was a little confusing. I gather that he remained in prison for some period of years, and then eventually there was a clemency hearing and that went
Eventually,
along.
yeah, she said, well, we'll consider it. And then you never hear of it. And it's just not an issue for him. But he reacts as though when Divine Eye shows him the slender envelope, he knows that means you got released. You will get released. And he's sad because he didn't. We don't know. We don't see his thick envelope, and we don't see another mention of it until the end.
And that
So
was the irony too, because he was the one that helped divine eye,
I get released.
prepped him for the clemency hearing and helped him so that he did get out. And then he, no matter what he did, he was still
Well,
stuck there.
that's the irony. We know him and we feel the sense of injustice of the system because he was unjustly convicted. And it's just fate that the voice on the tape that clears him died, so they can't corroborate the authenticity. And yet there's something about him that they believed. And so, yeah, it's not a treatise on prison life, but it's a good layman's, I don't want to say layman's, that's kind of an insult. It shows a lot of understanding of what prisoners go through and the traps and the injustices, as well as the rewards and the connections. So it's a small movie, but there are those who love it, as they say about some colleges. And I was very touched the first time I saw it, and I was again, mostly because of his performance. You feel what he's been through. He experiences, as the godfather of the whole troupe, the little travails of each one. So their victories are his, and losses, especially of Mike, are his loss as well. So I'm kind of talked out. I like the movie. I'll talk more about it if anybody wants to say anything, but it's getting kind of hard because I'm having trouble finding films that require a lot of discussion or demand a lot of discussion. I mean, I'm sorry that Mickey 1 required so much discussion because that was really, I was thinking about it the other day. In watching movies from the 50s and 60s, they're really in your face, realistic they're dramas, but it's like linear storytelling, no deception, no hidden meanings. It's all in your face, scene, one causing the other. And Mickey 1 was not. Mickey 1 was a manipulation of symbols. The Salvation Army people asking, is there any word from the Lord? Then the artist reminding him of the freedom of imagination and creativity and how you can coexist with doubt. And it ends with him walking off into the city lights in the spotlight, like he's going his own way now, finally, despite who's following him. So that was a little harder to track. And that was new because that was like 1961 or 63 when that was made, 61. And it wasn't known as groundbreaking. It didn't get much attention, but it's, people who studied Arthur Penn or Warren Beatty or just this kind of film that manipulates symbols is more intellectual, more thoughtful than a straight drama. It's known. And interestingly, I just watched Elmer Gantry, which was made in 63. Yeah, Burt Lancaster won an Oscar for it. And it's really ham-fisted and very slow going. But then after you get to the last 40 minutes or hour, it's just terrific. But you have to slog through the overstated scenes. It's overly wordy and takes its time. And I just wonder how that story would be told. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes, Elmer Gantry. And I wonder how you tell that story better, quicker for today. Because today's audiences, they may watch a Nolan movie or a Tarantino movie, and it's long because there are plenty of thrills and chills along the way. It's a meal with a lot of courses, and each of them satisfying in a different way, but not necessarily connecting. So we have a shorter attention span, but we also have an ability to see what's not there and not be bothered by it, not be thrown off, because we still can follow the track of the whole film where it's headed. And we like that. That's called audience engagement, and when you put a film together, you have to keep track. You have to tease the audience. You have to stay a little bit ahead of them so they don't know what they're going to see next. So when they do see it, it's a surprise, reveals something new, fun, sad, more tension, more danger, whatever. So you always have to leave them at the end of every scene asking for more. And that's the shorthand rule of filmmaking. Maybe you lawyers in the audience know that less is more, and knowing to quit, knowing your summation was enough. But you get into a scene as late as possible and get out of it as early as possible, because then you let the scene do its own work. And maybe the transitions are meaningful, but that's really, we're much more skilled at doing that without even thinking about it. It wasn't that way in the old days. You'd have to have an establishing shot and then cut to the interior and then a wide shot and then close-ups and the dialogue scene. We forego a lot of that, generally speaking. Documentaries were the same way until we learned for the last 25 years that the way you introduce a character in a documentary is not to have a narrator saying, and this man is a curator at the Smithsonian. No, you see them walking around the museum exhibits and fussing with things and giving directions. You witness who they are by watching them in action. So you show, you don't tell. And I think this was a lot of showing and not telling, because it was all about revealing people, and there's very little plot definition other than we're making a show. So in a way, it's a very modern film. I don't think this was gone over very well in the 50s or 60s or 70s. But I don't know. I'll try and find other films that move us yet have something that needs to be revealed about them. So let's talk about the future. The high holidays are coming up. And I don't know what days of the week they occur on, but the synagogue likes to avoid programming between the holidays. And sometimes I can get a schedule in September or October, in the week between, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, or after Yom Kippur. But then there's what's out, Tu B'Shvat or something after. No, I don't know. Sukkot. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I will try to get us a date to converse about something in September. I don't know if it's possible. October may also be compromised. But
I'm looking at the calendar, Jim. Rosh Hashanah is Monday, September 22nd. It begins in the evening. And the Yom Kippur is Wednesday, October 1 at sundown. So that goes to October 2nd.
So we could get in there mid-September, and we could get out
mid-October, I guess.
Mid-October, yeah. Okay, I'll see what I can do. Let me pull up my trusty file here. And I know I throw these titles out and they don't mean much to you, but sometimes, I saw the Janice Ian film and I said, I got to show this, they'll get this, And some people didn't like her, but at least they got it. Oh, you see, here's another one. It's apparently Burt Lancaster's greatest film is Sweet Smell of Success, where he plays a mean Broadway publicist. And Tony Curtis is his younger version of himself, as Mini-Me. And it's very cutthroat about Broadway actors and performers and writers and the coldness of Burt Lancaster's character. I saw it recently and it's very dark, and I hesitated to program it. I see there's another Philip Roth story, and it's very touching. It's anybody read American Pastoral by Philip
Yes.
Roth? Yeah.
That was very good.
It's about a man who loses his daughter to the youth generation, and she becomes a zombie and a cult victim, and he doesn't give up on her. And it's all about his pursuit through the world. It's very moving at the end. It really is.
I read the book. Is that a movie too?
Yeah. It's I forget who made it. It's I don't know. It's quite good. And it's not there are parts of it that aren't easy when you see her. He loses track of her for years, and slowly he catches up to her, and she's fallen in with a bunch of radicals. She's radicalized as a teenager and actually plants a bomb at a local gas station to protest the Vietnam War, and she goes on the run. and she falls in with a circle of radical people who shelter her and protect her. And ultimately, she gets to be too much trouble for them to shelter. And one of the members of the inner circle um, presents herself as a business school researcher and begins flirting with the woman's father, and eventually tries to seduce him, and has him bring money. And that's when she tries to seduce him, and because she wants money for her organization. And that's a very tough scene to watch. It's not that it's so sexually explicit, but she's so brazen. And he gives a great performance. I forget who it is. And then he realizes he's been had, and he loses track of her until he sees this woman, this phony seductress, on the street, and he chases her down. He throws her against the wall and says, "You take me to her." And she takes him to her, and that's the beginning, the last 40 minutes of the movie, where he tries to lure her out of her squalor. She lives in an abandoned building, and she's lost all her teeth, and she's a Jain. A Jain is it's an Indian sect that believes that they can't kill anything. So when they sit down, they brush off their seats lest they sit on an insect. A very extreme culture about your soul. You have no control over the world, and your soul should not act upon it. And she's just a lost soul. And he won't give up on her. He stands outside her apartment through many seasons, and he dies. And I won't tell you the ending. After that, it's narrated by David Strathairn, who plays Philip Roth as the narrator who goes back to his college reunion and finds all about this hero that everybody had, the man was idolized in high school. And there's not a lot of Jewishness in it, although it is a Jewish funeral at the end. But it's typical Roth, but it's all about critique of the 1960s and 70s and
I
overly
think
woke.
so many of us lived through that generation, are part of that generation with the
Well,
Vietnam War.
yeah.
I read the book a long time ago, but I remember we could all, because the people in my book group were all in that,
Well, today,
in that age group, and we could relate to that time period.
well, I think this is one reason I'd like to bring it back, is because my kids don't know what it was like to live through the 60s. They sort of heard about the Vietnam War protests and all that, but they don't appreciate the sense of mission that totally sincere white and black people had towards, creating positive social change. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. There was a sense of, wow, we really did that by protests. A lot of people ran away to Canada. A lot of people got in jail. 4 people were shot at Kent State. It wasn't that bloody, but there was lots of violence. That's the era of fire hosing black people as they sat in at a snack bar in Memphis. By the way, the owners of that snack bar were New York Jews. And when they found out about the about the event, they integrated that snack bar and all the other snack bars of the stores they owned. And they became supporters of King, that family, financial supporters. And he had a lot of Jewish support. And it's not just the 2 Jewish guys who were killed in Alabama. So I think
is that movie available on Amazon or Netflix?
What? American Pastoral?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's there. Maybe we'll see it. I don't see anybody jumping out of their shoes but you. So
I'm the only one who's interested.
well, let other people speak. I think it's a well enough made film. It's worthy of us. And then this one.
First, go ahead.
Oh, Elmer Gantry is just too much. But it's about, and Elmer Gantry is very much like a face in the crowd. Those of you remember we saw with Andy Griffith how this country bumpkin becomes a political figure, but I'm going to stay away from that.
How about something Jewish more?
Well, don't see Bad Shabbos. Don't.
That's what I heard. It's awful.
It's awful. And I was with some Jewish people who thought it was hilarious. And no, it's insultingly bad.
Would anybody entertain The Brutalist?
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
It's kind of I don't know. I mean, I wanted to see it because I'm an architecture fan, and he is worthy of an award, but um, it really isn't about Jewishness, even though he did
Well,
it.
there are parts.
Yeah, there are. No, there definitely are. I mean,
But
he builds a church, as his
how he
crowning.
goes to synagogue and during he was there in services and
Yeah,
uh,
but Jewish themes. I wasn't moved enough by it. His performance, yes, but the film is a film.
the brutality of everything, the architecture,
Yeah, but
the
that was him. That was his creativity. He wanted to build that way. Other people,
but the filming of it too is brutalistic. I mean,
what do you mean the production of it? On the set?
yes, yeah, the things that are shown
Oh
in
yeah, the visuals are brutalistic. Yeah,
are very brutalistic. Um,
Remember, he was a camp survivor. I forget who.
yes,
yeah, right. He
And at
was.
the end, he gets some
and then he
reward,
gets
and he
caught
says
up under the communist rule.
Yeah, yeah.
something about how the camp inspired his brutalist aesthetic.
Right.
Uh-huh. Anybody seen this new film with Olivia Colman called Wicked Little Letters? It's supposed to be a lot of fun. She's always good. There's a new French film called Les Musiciens about a group of musicians. Um, I don't know. I got more work to do, especially for the Jewish ones.
There was something you recommended once. I can't remember the name of it. It was from a very long time ago. I think it had 8 in the name.
8, EIGHT, the number.
EIGHT, yeah. Maybe I'm not remembering right.
Well, there's a movie called Hateful Eight, but that's a
No,
Tarantino.
that wasn't it.
No.
All right.
Was a Fellini movie 8.5?
Oh, 8.5.
8.5. That's what it was.
Okay,
8.5.
I would
Yeah.
love to show that, but that is a film about creativity, and it's quite abstract.
Yeah.
And Fern said, no, never show 8.5.
Why?
It's one of Fellini's best films. It's really put him on the map as a fantasist. And it's about the creative struggle to make a movie. And it delves into his past, his boyhood, as well as his conflict. He has a wife, he has a mistress, he has a producer, and they're all on him for different things. And the world encroaches upon his sanity. I'd love to do it, but yeah,
That's the problem with the Jewish group. You'll never get everybody to agree.
that's true.
Just do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
so
Well, I
Bird won't watch that one. What
I
can
got
say?
burned. I was so fond of Mickey One. I thought you guys would light up for it. And Jeff Ellison liked it. Thank you, Jeff, so much. But all right, maybe I will. But if you've never seen 8.5, you should. It's a real window on the black and white post-war films of Italy. I could show the humanistic ones, Bicycle Thieves, Umberto D, which is about a man and his dog, sort of. But probably Bicycle Thieves is the most moving one by Vittorio De Sica, set in post-war Italy, and everybody's so poor, and a father who finally gets a job putting up posters gets his bike stolen, so he can't put up posters anymore, and he goes off to find the thief, and he winds up stealing a bike himself, and his son sees it, and the crowd chases him, and it's all about a slice of life of this hard scrabble life of poor Italians. And ultimately, it embraces the crowd. And it's humanistic. And without being socialist or communistic, it's like, this is what real people, how they're living and how they're feeling. So that's the neorealist school. And there were others. Fellini was a neorealist in the beginning. But I don't know. How do you feel about older films? Yeah, your game.
I like them.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, well,
If they're ones you recommend.
well, believe me, there are a lot more that I've stayed away from. But there's one I know you'll love called Reading Lolita in Tehran, about a Persian academic who leaves during the revolution in '79 and comes back to teach and finds out things aren't any better. So she forms a book group in secret with women, some of whom have to hide their presence there from their families or the male in their family. and ultimately she leaves. It's a real story, and it's based on a book of this
That
woman.
one I read the book too.
Yeah,
So-
it's a lovely film, and all the women in the group have their own stories, and all eventually leave for various reasons, because the regime is so oppressive. Um,
I'll just mention a Holocaust film. There's a film called Chelmno, um, which is um, incredibly accurate because the people that worked on it work at the U.S. Holocaust
yeah,
Museum. And um, it really, I mean, first of all, it was the first of the camps, death camps, and moreover, the prisoners who escaped were the first ones to reveal to the rest of the world
okay.
what was happening in these camps.
And it's called Helm now because there is a current film.
No, it's The World Will Tremble.
Tremble, right?
The world will tremble, right?
Yeah. Well, I talked about that with Susan Nanis, and she said, "Oh, that's so grim. Can't we save it for another time?" And I said, "Oh, people need to see this."
I saw it a few months ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's hard to watch, but it's a good medicine. It's cathartic to watch
I
it.
don't think I want to watch it again.
You don't have to. So we're considering a live screening of it at the on the resident campus in the chapel, and with a live discussion afterwards. And I can probably arrange a Zoom for anybody to chime in, like Betty and Jeff who aren't in LA.
Oh, that would be nice.
It's a very powerful film. It's not perfect, a little self-indulgent in places, but it follows the two guys who escaped, who got the word out about this first concentration camp and killing by asphyxiation. So how did you hear about that? Did I mention it, Jeff?
No, no. I came across it in some article
Yeah.
in RX or
It,
something. And
it's
I will say that the fact that historians were so much a part of creating this film and the speech that the commandant gives is exactly the
yeah,
speech that was
yeah.
given.
The filmmaker was related to somebody who was connected with an escapee, and he went to the archives in Poland to
Right.
research that. And
Yes.
he did a lot of personal research, and
He had to because, as is said, there's been nothing published
no,
about that particular camp.
right.
There's very little because there were so few survivors.
No, also they razed it. They tore it down.
Well,
So
that
there's
too.
nothing left. Nothing.
Right.
They did find the mass graves though near it.
Yeah.
So it definitely existed, but and maybe you've heard of the book Buried by the Times about how the New York Times suppressed making an issue of the killing camps until 1942, until they had to because the word got to them. Other people were reporting it, but there wasn't much documentation. And I'm going to try and get Michael Berenbaum, who's the foremost Holocaust scholar here, to appear as our guest and to pull back the layer of all this. And he may hate the movie, he may think it's wrong in places, but he's the person to talk to about its authenticity. But really, yes, it's not the historians at the museums, although they were helpful, the archivists. It's this guy's personal drive to uncover the story and find the document of their records, their written report of what was going
Yes,
on.
but it was all fact checked
Yeah,
theoretically by the U.S. Holocaust.
I'm sure they did, but it wasn't on their radar when he discovered it. So, so that's going to be for
Just a
Crystal Knock.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's for Crystal Knock. I'm saving it for live performance because it's a really. I did the Q&A for the premiere at the Lemley in the Valley, and there were people weeping so loud they couldn't talk in the Q&A, and it was just powerful. And because you really get to know these two guys and the travails that they go through to get the word out, even when they know they're doomed, they still continue. So it's a lovely film, gorgeously shot, and it works. It's really effective. So I'm kind of saving that, but thanks for bringing it up.
The name of it was The World Will Tremble.
The
That's
world
the
will
name of it?
tremble. The world
Yeah.
will tremble. And of course, it didn't tremble. but that's the line. They finally reach a Jewish rabbi who's redundant, who's a member of the underground, and he gets the word back to the center of the underground in Warsaw.
London, yeah,
It,
gets
it gets
to
to
it.
London, yeah, and then it breaks. This is 42.
I remember, I don't know if people read Elie Wiesel's book Night, but one thing I remember right at the very beginning, there was an old man who came back, who's right at, so it sounds very similar to this. And he came back after, I don't remember if he was a prisoner or if he just saw what was going on in the camps, and he
Oh,
told people
so
and nobody believed him.
so
So
what
it's
Oh,
you're
this is
talking about?
Jan Karski.
No,
I
what?
think,
what you're talking about is Moishe the Beetle.
uh,
Oh,
He's the character in Night that Night begins with.
oh, okay.
And he, in a way, there are several prophets in the beginning of Night, and he is one of the prophets. He was a foreigner who was taken away, and they shot the Einsatz group and shot all these people, and he returned to the village and he tried to tell the people what was coming, but the people could went back to their life as usual. They couldn't believe that something like this, and he ultimately becomes a kind of candle whose wax burns out,
Mm,
um, and suffers a kind of death because no one will listen to him.
mm. Yeah, I didn't remember all the details. I just remember somebody coming back and nobody could believe it
He's
because
a,
it was
he's a prophet.
obviously it's so hard to believe.
In the tradition of the Old Testament, he is a prophet.
Oh,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Let me run a few pictures by you. The Apartment, it's a Billy Wilder film with Jack
Yeah,
Lemmon, young Jack
yeah,
Lemmon, and Shirley MacLaine. It's a
yeah.
lovely
Mm,
story, really beautifully written and beautifully mounted by Billy Wilder. I think you'd really like it. And it's accessible enough that we could talk about it as filmmaking, not just as a story. I'm going to move that up in my list because we need a hit. Uh, um, and September is, who knows what comes online. Maybe that Tehran movie will come online. Um, so I believe me, I work very hard. I spend way too much time, but it's like, and I get distracted. I watched Almost Famous, which has nothing to do with anything we, but I had to see it because it's a very sweet movie by Curtis Hanson about his life as a young rock reporter. And uh, so there are distractions along the way, but I,
I wanted to say because you said about this movie, there wasn't much to talk about, but I thought we did talk, maybe not as much as some of the others, but I thought we did, find things to talk about.
well,
And
the
you
key,
certainly contributed a whole lot.
well, the way I work is that you say a scene, I say, "Oh yeah, I remember what happened in that," and this is what it means, and but this one was hard to say to track all those revelations, because it slowly inched up and circled around and spiraled upwards to the play. um, it's much harder it's almost like diagramming a sentence. You have to
Mm,
diagram the film and the function of every scene. Every scene should have a function in a good movie. And next time you watch any movie, you say, okay, why is this here and not somewhere else? Why is it important to see? Now, maybe you don't understand that till the end of the movie, but you should be able to go back over it one time and say, oh, that's why it's there. This is what it does and why we need it to get to this point.
Is there any great Shakespeare film that's been
Uh,
made?
well, there is something interesting. I don't know if it's on film yet. Hamlet is it's a bunch of soliloquies and other scenes with Hamlet. And then there's scenes that he's not in at all.
Right.
And this theater director removed all the scenes that Hamlet is not in. So suddenly it really emphasizes his drama and his plight, being, oh my God, my uncle killed my father, and this betrayal and it's my rightful throne, and it heightens the sense of what Hamlet's dilemma is and why that to be or not to be.
I'm just wondering if there's a great Shakespearean film.
Well, Olivier's in a couple, and it's going to be older actors, it wouldn't be a recent performance. And there are other great performance films. I mean, that's why I brought up Elmer Gantry. But there are current playwrights. I mean, I suppose we could look at more recent plays like The Angry Young Men of England. There's one called with Richard Burton as an angry young man, written by an angry young man playwright. And some of these are, they're dramatic, but are they relevant? I don't know. We're hard. We've had all the low-hanging fruit, and I'd love to see Clockwork Orange again, but I wouldn't program it.
Why?
It's very relevant, and there's a great story about the ending. There were two endings, and apparently he chose the wrong one, but it's too violent. I think people will reject it. We could see Fruitvale Station, Ryan Coogler's first film, from there to Sinners. But Sinners isn't out yet. There's just so many. Hitchcock, I just saw a fun film. I saw two Hitchcock films. The one that ends on Mount Rushmore.
North by Northwest.
North by Northwest, and then there's another one. Strangers on a Train. No, it's
Yeah.
The Lady Vanishes.
no. And look, there's the films of the Russian German expats who came to Hollywood in late 30s. There, the German cinema was very far advanced. I mean, Billy Wilder came out of that, and so I've got work to do.
All right.
And I will.
Get to work.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Daddy. I'm glad you felt this was meaningful. Peg, I didn't thank you for joining us. I hope we didn't bore you to tears, but please join us again. You're always welcome. So, good night, everybody.